Hey everybody, welcome to Black History, slide set number 6 on antebellum slavery. So antebellum is a word you're going to need to know, and it's actually pretty simple even though you don't hear it all the time. In Latin, a lot of the time they smush two words together. Where we would use a phrase like before the war, they smush the two words together. So ante means before and bellum means war. So basically, antebellum means before the war. But in American history, we always use this to mean the Civil War. It never means any other wars. Okay, so this is about the time period, you know, from around 1800 up to the Civil War breaks out in 1861. So we're talking in this unit about slavery in the antebellum period, the period before the Civil War. And we talked already in the last part, in the last unit, about slavery not taking hold in the North, right? And remember, I taught you guys about how a lot of it was weather and climate because they couldn't have plantation agriculture. Slavery was never really going to be a thing, okay? And then as the country goes west and gets bigger and we start adding new states like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan, they never had slavery. Okay, the law that created those states didn't allow slavery. They called that the Old Northwest. And the reason was because they knew that the climate in those states, it was never going to be a place for plantation agriculture, so there was never going to be slavery there. So just like the states in the Northeast, slavery was not a thing. So you can see how the country is being pushed into two different parts. Okay, the slave states in the pink down at the bottom of the map, and then the other states in the north in green and blue that, because of their climate, because of different reasons, never have slavery grow in a big way, and then they ban it. And so we end up with the country being very split, which is going to lead up to the Civil War. Let's talk about the antebellum South and what it was like. First, it was primarily agrarian. Agrarian means like agriculture. So the South was just all about farming. And as we learned, plantation agriculture, right? Staple crop agriculture. The main crop is cotton. Now, remember earlier in the unit, or earlier in the year, I stressed to you guys, like, hey, cotton is the wrong answer for what slaves were growing and doing at that time. But starting at this time is when we see cotton is king. Cotton becomes the most important of U.S. exports. Okay, it's huge. People are making so much money from cotton. But because of this, the South doesn't develop very much, right? The South is only about farming, so they don't develop business, they don't develop factories, okay? Their financial system is rudimentary, it's backwards, okay? They don't develop a lot of banks, they don't develop a lot of institutions like that. And also their transportation system, they don't develop a lot of railroads, they don't. Why? We only care about growing cotton, so we're not going to do that stuff in the South. And then you'll see when we get to the Civil War, that's going to make a big difference. So, how was Southern society set up? Well, on top was what we call the slaveocracy. Okay, it's a twist on the word democracy, right? If you have a democracy, but only these small group of people have power, is that really democracy? Okay, that's a question you have to think about. Plantation owners had all the power in the South because they had all the money. I would argue to you guys that that even hasn't really changed all that much in our society, right? Like, people who have money have access to the politicians, okay? Most white people, even in the South, were plain folk, okay? White farmers, small farmers, they did their farming with their family. They didn't have enough money, they didn't own slaves, okay? And that was most white people by far. Only a small number of people ever owned a slave. There actually were about 250,000 free black men in the South. And of course, 3.2 million African American slaves. And that was at a time that the US population was 23 million, so a lot smaller than it is now, right? We're like, I think, over 350 million now. So the country as a whole was a lot smaller. If you look at this map, it sort of shows when the blue is whites and the red is slaves. If you look at the different states, especially the cotton producing states, you see that the numbers of African Americans are much higher. And if you move up north a little and you look at places where cotton growing wasn't a thing, you know, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, okay, you see the population of slaves was much smaller. Okay, and this map shows cotton growing is in the yellow, so you see how much it took over huge sections. And if you look at states like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, you know, South Carolina, I mean, it took over huge portions of those states. Okay, all they were doing was growing cotton. And you look at a state like Kentucky where we really had no cotton growing. You see tobacco is the pink, and then you see growing, you know, other things like hemp and even doing coal mining. I insert this picture just to show this is a picture from back at that time. And, you know, they paint this picture. It looks all lovely and it's a very pretty, very colorful painting. But when you remember and you keep in your mind that what this painting is depicting, right, is the enslavement of human beings. And it takes on a different character. This shows slaves using the cotton gin. And it's important to note here, right, for you guys, that the cotton gin was huge as an invention. It mattered so much because a lot of the founding fathers, including people like Thomas Jefferson, thought slavery was dying out. Now, they didn't live long enough to see it, but once the cotton gin comes in, now you can get the seeds out of that cotton with a machine. So you need more people to pick cotton, more and more and more. And you got to keep that machine working so you keep making money. So you need more and more slaves picking cotton, right? So before, when I told you guys to not think about the cotton thing, well, that's changed once the cotton gin is in. Slaves will be primarily involved in picking cotton and getting it into that cotton gin. Well, we can see how cotton production shoots up, right? The first map here is 1820, and then the second map is 1860. The pinkish, I guess it's orange more, area is cotton production. And you can see how much it explodes across the South, okay, after 1820. Once the cotton gin is in, now you can really make a lot of money growing cotton. And so that's what people are going to do. So this is where we're going to stop with this part of the slide set. And I will talk to you guys soon.